After months of writing and even more editing, the more philosophically orientated sequel to Our Vision, Duty and Sovereignty, is now finally available for all to read in both English and Rusyn. In it, I cover difficult topics such as the responsibility to one's nation, intellectual freedom, and the importance of legacy. If you find the following chapter enjoyable to listen to, consider purchasing the full version of the book using the links below in the comments section and description. Chapter 6. Pride in Your Society. Pride and respect of a culture is essential to the continuation of it. This may read as obvious at first glance, but an important question arises when the statement is fully thought through. Why should one be prideful of something they have not actually done themselves? A person's first thought about what it means to be proud of something is usually towards a personal accomplishment. This is almost completely opposite when it relates to culture, as most things people are prideful of happened before they were even born. Without an obvious answer, this reverence towards the past is often represented as a tribalistic impulse. In other words, a primitive and uncivilized part of the brain that should be solved or eradicated. There are, however, tangible answers that rise far above the animalistic nature within all of us. The first is that of the familial connection, and connected with it, the collective ownership of a people's culture and history. Everything that has come out of a culture has been influenced by the people who lived inside it. Therefore, at a fundamental level, the individual and society are inseparable from each other. While every individual is unique, they are still a product of their time and place. This can be understood because of the relationship between upbringing, thought, and action. Someone raised in America from the time they were born until the age of 18 will have its social norms, views, and memories ingrained into their minds for the rest of their life. Every single action will therefore be based on them in some way. Think of a child who has only experienced war and conflict throughout his life versus someone who has never seen a sword or gun. Without ever experiencing anything else, he will see this as the natural state of the world. From this, he might save extra food, be more distrusting of others, and see violence as a more acceptable way to end a dispute, while the other kid has complete opposite actions and beliefs. Does this mean they are incapable of self-autonomy, or that what they have done is not a product of their own work? No, but it does mean that their environment permanently molded them and gave a rubric to follow. A society's history, expectations, and morals all have an effect on what the individual is allowed to do. Since a society is made up of a collection of people, on a more basic level each person changes the lives of others as well. It is not a top-to-bottom system, but in fact, the opposite. This process of culture to action can be seen at the macro level between countries as well. Some may value advancement over tradition more than others, freedom over security. It can be a host of any number of combinations. Some zip codes within California have eclipsed the Arab world by a factor of 10 times in terms of technological inventions. But when it comes to Islamic philosophy, there is no more productive place than Arabia. This is not stated as a judgment of what each society values, but to show how it can steer its most capable people in specific directions. One person may become a bishop in a certain place, but an imam in the other depending on the society. If any two nations are compared, these differences can be seen no matter the combination. To fully grasp the connection this has in regards to pride, we must go from the esoteric to a more relatable example. Think of being proud of your people's history and culture as akin to being proud of one's brother or sister achieving something truly profound. In a general sense, you are not necessarily proud of yourself, but of those that are connected to you. It is also true in an ancestral sense, if not literal as well in some cases, that everyone is a cousin to one another. Would one criticize an individual for being proud of their family's accomplishments? Perhaps, but I would argue that being proud of something someone else has done that you have a connection to isn't wrong, but instead a healthy sign of a family. Though at this stage if someone were to argue against such a thing of fundamental importance, then it is unlikely the person would have any interest in this book or its ideas at all. When we understand that a nation is just a larger scale family, it is not hard to follow to where a sense of pride comes from. I will go so far as to say that a lack of pride of one's history and culture indicates something extremely wrong in a society. If someone sees nothing to be prideful about in their nation, then why would they continue it into the future? The answer is that they would not. This explanation may work for some already, but the second part of its importance must be understood as well to have the full picture. The ownership of a culture and the responsibility that comes with is essential to understanding not just the reason, but utility in being proud of it. In contrast to the first argument for the positivity of pride, which is from a more sociological mindset, there's also a more pragmatic argument to be had. Think of the collective ownership of a culture as akin to a family-run art gallery or museum. This is to say that you are born into it with the expectation to one day run it yourself, similar to being born into a society that you didn't choose. Within each room of the museum is artwork and writings on display from your ancestors. As for the art gallery, this space is work you or others in your family have created. You could always hang paintings in the art gallery, but once the keys to the museum are given to you when the old caretaker retires, it is now the responsibility of your generation to care for the place and decide when to replace a historical artwork in the museum with something newer and better of yours. Too much change, however, and nobody will be interested in a collection of purely new artwork. If someone wanted that, then they would go to the art gallery instead. Regardless of those choices, it is also still your job to take care of the place and pieces, even if they are in the back room. If one is not careful, then cobwebs will start to grow and water may leak through the back doors, damaging the artwork and manner inside. A few generations of neglect and the whole place will crumble and destroy what rests inside. You have probably guessed by now the connection that this example has with real life. A younger generation's responsibility for their nation's culture is much like that of a family-owned and produced art gallery and museum. Deciding what stays and goes in a culture is akin to deciding what sculptures should be on display. And with it, they need to make sure things do not slip into chaos. An individual should also take pride in their stewardship if they want their own artwork to be hanging on the wall once they are gone. One day our grandchildren will look back on our artwork and put it in the same category with things that are archaic, even to us now. In other words, much like our predecessors, what we do will also fall into the background of Rusyn history. We are not simply islands floating in space, but another link in a chain of generations stretching back 1,000 years. It is only when this is understood that the knowledge of ownership can be fully realized. Without it, not only the past, but future too will crumble away.